Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 254-256. A Boweth Kingdom. Chapter 254. Chapter 256. A Boweth Kingdom. Before he recovers, Soren appears above him. She swings her dagger in a wide arc. Tempest Edge carves the air into 5-layered blades that slice down like guillotine winds. Thalen grits his teeth and roars, thrusting his great sword up. Tear for skill. Lightning barrage. And dozens of lightning bolts erupt in all directions. The storm collides with the wind. Mana detonates between them, filling the sky with blinding light. But Soren reappears through the smoke, untouched. The storm veil absorbs every strike, redirecting the current harmlessly around her. She lands on Thalen's chest, midair, knee driving into his solar plexus. He gasps, wind knocked from his lungs. She slashes. Crack. His shoulder guard shatters. She slashes again. Tempest Edge digs into his side. Wind pressure explodes outward, sending blood flying in spirals. Thalen screams and swings wildly. Soren leans back, spinning in the air, and delivers a reverse kick to his jaw. His helmet flies off. Blood sprays. He falls disoriented, then catches himself midair with a blast of lightning beneath his feet. But he's panting now, bleeding, face twisted in disbelief. He watches her descend slowly toward him, wind curling around her like ribbons. Her expression doesn't change. Below, amid the chaos of clashing monsters and soldiers, Ruva grins wide, her short swords crackling as she parries a tear for human mage's firebolt with a radiant burst of mana. She's scraped up, a little burned, but standing tall over 2 dead enemies. Her heart pounds, but the moment she sees Soren dominate the sky, yes, Ruva cheers, her voice cutting through the screams and roars. That's right. That's my big sister. Her joy flares as Thalen stumbles, wounded and confused, barely holding himself aloft. Above, Thalen coughs, blood wheezing. His sword hangs limply in one hand. And then, he laughs. Ha! Ha ha ha. Thalen's shoulders tremble as he laughs bitterly. Unbelievable. I'm getting thrashed. By a monster. His voice weakens, but he turns his eyes away, toward someone watching from a distance. Sir, are you not going to move? He says through clenched teeth. I'm about to die here. For a moment, there's no response. Then, he moves. From the far edge of the broken sky, a new figure steps into view. A man clad in deep green robes lined with golden thread. He's slim, wiry, not armored, but his presence is suffocating. His footsteps make no sound, his eyes like sharpened jade. His face is calm. The representative of the Boweth Kingdom. He doesn't speak. He simply raises a hand. Soren's eyes narrow. The wind around her stills. Something shifts. The air tenses. Without warning, a ripple tears through the battlefield. Soren's danger sense screams too late. A flash of brown gold arcs through the space between them. Not lightning, not fire, but stone. A pillar of compressed bedrock erupts beneath her, aiming straight for her heart. She doesn't even see it move. A thunderous crack explodes as the stone lance slams into Soren's chest. Or it should have. Instead, golden light blossoms from her wrist. The bracelet. The one Alex gave her months ago. Humble, almost decorative, a band she never took off. Now it glows like a miniature sun. A radiant dome of golden energy bursts outward, encasing Soren in a shimmering shield just before impact. The earth lance shatters against it, spraying gravel and dust into the sky. The shockwave knocks Soren back, tumbling through the air. But she's alive. The shield vanishes a heartbeat later, fragments of light drifting like feathers. Cracks run along the bracelet's edge. Soren coughs, blinking through the pain. Her limbs tremble. That would have killed me. Below, Ruva's heart stops. Soren. She sees the shield disappear. She sees the enemy raise his hand again. Calm as ever, weaving the next spell. His mana spikes. The ground beneath him rumbles. Another one. Ruva's instincts scream. She runs. No hesitation. No second thought. She burns every ounce of mana she has. Her whole body ignites with speed. The world blurs. Her heart hammers. She screams Soren's name again as the next spell forms. A spiked wall of earth rising from the ground, aimed to impale from multiple directions. And Soren, still recovering midair, can't move fast enough. No! Ruva hurls herself forward, wind howling in her ears. She tears the pendant from around her neck, the one Alex gave her for protection, and throws her arm up to activate it. But just before she can, something faster moves. 2 shadows break from the air beside her, like reality peeling apart. Figures in black featureless masks, no sound, no names. The very air bends around them. Boom, the first shadow slams a palm into the incoming spell. Earth erupts as he counters with a precise shockwave of mana shattering the formation. Crack! The second shadow appears in front of Ruva, arms spread wide as a wide dome of darkness unfurls from his cloak, neutralizing the lingering fragments. Everything goes still. The dust settles. The two shadows stand firm. One beside Soren, the other shielding Ruva. Then one turns to her and speaks, voice smooth and emotionless behind the mask. Princess Ruva, he says. Please take General Soren and withdraw immediately. Ruva stares, panting, adrenaline still raging in her veins. You're with the shadows? She gasps. The second one nods once. We've been tasked with your safety. Ruva swallows, hard eyes flicking between the two silent figures and the distant mage already preparing another spell. She hesitates, but only for a heartbeat. Thank you, she breathes, voice low but fierce. She rushes to Soren, grabbing her arm and wrapping it over her shoulder. Soren groans, but she's still conscious barely. You're gonna be okay, Ruva mutters, forcing calm into her voice. I got you. As she lifts into the air, flying low and fast, one of the shadows watches them go, then slowly exhales. Looks like our job's done, he murmurs. The other shadow rolls his neck, drawing two slender, curved blades from beneath his cloak. Our job's ending, he replies. We're not dying with clean hands. The first chuckles, a dark edge in his voice. Damn right. Above the battlefield, Soren forces herself to her feet, midair, blood in her mouth, breath shallow. But her voice is still steady. Retreat, she calls out. The word is clear, laced with authority. It slices through the chaos like a command from the heavens. All units fall back. Now. The monsters hear her instantly. Across the battlefield, all pause mid-assault. One by one, they turn, disengaging fluidly. Even though they're winning, they don't question the order. They've seen what she saw. A tier 6 is here. And no victory is worth facing that alone. The beasts howl, once calling the retreat. Monsters scatter and fall back in coordinated bursts, dragging their wounded, leaving scorched ground and shattered weapons in their wake. Ruva, still holding Soren, glances over her shoulder as the tide turns. She sees the enemy troops hesitate. Some try to pursue, but their officers hold them back. The green-robed representative of Abaoth watches them flee, his expression still unreadable, eyes following the monsters like a hawk eyeing prey. Then he lifts his hand again, this time slowly, deliberately. Monsters, he says, voice calm but venomous. Don't think you'll leave here alive. Mana floods the air heavier than before. But before his spell forms, they move. The two shadows vanish from where they stood. No words. No sound. Just motion. Crack. The first shadow appears beside the representative like a phantom dagger already aimed for his throat. The green-robed man turns, catching the blade midair with a barrier of compressed stone. But the force of the impact hurls him backward through the air. The second shadow drops from above, blades spinning in a spiral of black steel. Sparks fly as his twin strikes clash against summoned shields, parrying his every blow. But he doesn't stop. He keeps pressing, blades carving arcs too fast to follow. The representative grits, his teeth forced onto the defensive. You dare? He hisses. The shadows say nothing. They don't need to. This is not about defiance. It's a message. You do not touch what we were told to protect. The representative's foot skids across broken stone as he slides backward. His expression twists, not in fear but in cold calculation. He raises his hand to strike back, mouth opening to chant a spell, but the first shadow surges forward, both daggers gleaming with cursed wind. He drives them deep into the mage's defenses. The earth splits under their feet from the impact. Boom! Mana explodes in a violent shockwave. Dust billows. The world trembles. The explosion punches through the battlefield like thunder. Dust and debris swirl through the air in a choking cloud. For a heartbeat, everything vanishes. Sight, sound, thought. Swallowed in the blast. And then, silence. A tremor rolls across the broken ground. The dust clears just enough to see two figures standing, barely. The shadows. One is hunched forward, blades buried into the cracks of the representative's shield, blood leaking from his side. The other kneels behind the mage, his curved dagger driven deep between the shoulder blades, pinning them both in place. Then, a pulse. Stone erupts in jagged pillars beneath them. Crack. The second shadow is skewered clean through the abdomen, lifted into the air by a spike of compressed bedrock. He doesn't scream. He doesn't flinch. He simply holds on, long enough for the other shadow to drive one last blade through the barrier. The representative grunts. Blood seeps from the corner of his mouth as the wind blade nicks his cheeks. He tears free with a burst of mana, flinging the first shadow back like a broken doll. The shadow hits the ground hard, rolling, coughing blood, but doesn't stop. He claws himself upright again. The representative raises his hand again, fingers glowing. Die. Chapter 255-257. How to Fight at Tier 7. Part 1. Chapter 255. Chapter 257. How to Fight at Tier 7. Part 1. When they're far from the city, past the reach of spells, screams and smoke, the wind grows quiet. Ruva slows, holding Soren carefully in her arms. Around, the charred earth gives way to untamed forest. The air is cooler here, untouched by battle. Then, a ripple. A sharp shift in pressure. A figure descends from above in a blur of motion and golden light. He lands silently on a jagged rock outcropping just ahead of them, arms folded, expression unreadable beneath windswept silver hair and eyes like steel. Astrum. His presence alone silences the wind. Tier 6. A general. A monster among monsters. Ruva go beside him, kneeling to let Soren rest against a boulder. Her breathing is shallow, but she's awake. Barely. Astrum steps forward, cloak brushing the ground. His gaze settles on Soren, eyes narrowing slightly. I guess he says I'm late. Soren forces her eyes open. She winces, then gives a faint nod. General Astrum. Astrum offers a faint tilt of the head in return. Though they share the same rank, the gulf between Tier 5 and Tier 6 is vast. Soren shifts, trying to sit up straighter despite the pain. Ruva steadies her with a hand. Astrum glances around the treetops, confirming they aren't followed. Then his gaze returns sharp and heavy. General Soren, he says evenly, how many monsters did we lose? Soren takes a moment to breathe, then replies, voice hoarse but steady, rough estimate. 20,000. Astrum doesn't blink. His expression stays neutral, but his fingers curl slightly at his sides. TCH. A quiet sound. Astrum's jaw tightens as he exhales through his nose. The air still carries traces of char and blood, but his focus is razor sharp. That Tier 6, he mutters, wasn't in the report. Soren turns, frowning. I thought Theth's shadows scouted ahead? They did, Astrum answers without looking at her. But they didn't see him. Either the bastard was shielded or he was only moved into position after the shadows pulled out. Ruva watches him cautiously, then steps forward. Her voice is small, but she doesn't hesitate. General Astrum? He glances at her, expression softening ever so slightly. Yes, Princess Ruva, he says with a brief nod. She lifts her chin, determination fighting through her exhaustion. Are we going back to take revenge? Right now? Astrum studies her for a beat. This child barely past 15, covered in dirt and soot, yet still standing. He shakes his head. No, he says calmly. We can't. Not tonight. Ruva frowns. Why not? They killed our people. They tricked us. I know, Astrum says firmly, cutting her off with a hand. He looks at the battlefield in the distance, the smoke curling above it like a warning. Our soldiers are scattered. Tired. Many can't even stand. If we return now, we'll lose even more. They'll have time to regroup. Ruva says, frustrated. Astrum crouches slightly to her eye level. His voice stays calm, but there's weight behind each word. They can regroup all they want. Because tomorrow, Ruva, his eyes sharpen, we'll make them pay for every last drop of blood they took from us. Tenfold. Ruva's breath catches. Then she nods slowly. Okay. Astrum rises again and looks back at Soren, who's half-conscious but listening. We'll regroup at outpost. Medics will meet us there. I'll have flyers sweep the rear. If that Tier 6 tries to pursue, I'll handle him myself. The temporary camp hums with quiet urgency. Healers moving between tents, wounded monsters groaning low, medics weaving spells and salves into torn flesh. The battlefield feels far away now, tucked behind miles of forest and fatigue. Inside a wide cloth-draped tent near the heart of the camp, the air is calm and dim. The scent of dried herbs and burning incense lingers in the space. Soren lies on a thick mat of beast fur, bandaged and cleaned, her breathing steadier than before. Her eyes remain closed, but her brow is no longer furrowed in pain. Ruva sits nearby on a low stool, her knees drawn up, arms wrapped around them. Her armor's been removed, her hair tied loosely behind her neck, and dirt still smudges her cheeks. She stares at Soren quietly for a while, then says almost in a whisper, war is really cruel. Her voice trembles, not from fear but something deeper. Grief, maybe. Or guilt. The 20,000. They just died. Just like that. Soren's eyes flutter open, sluggish but aware. She turns her head slightly toward the girl and manages a faint smile. Don't be so down, Ruva, she says, her voice rough but steady. Those monsters didn't regret it. Ruva lifts her gaze. Really? Soren looks up at the roof of the tent, exhaling slowly. Yes, because I've fought beside them for months now. Most of them dream of dying in battle. Of giving everything they have for something greater. She pauses, then looks at Ruva. For their king. Your big brother. Ruva blinks, eyes wet but not crying. They really think like that? They do, Soren nods. It's not just orders or duty. It's pride. Loyalty. Purpose. She shifts, slightly wincing but still speaking. For them dying like that. It's an honor. Ruva hugs her knees tighter. I didn't expect it to feel like this. It wasn't supposed to be this bad. Soren closes her eyes again, smiling faintly. It always is. No matter how many battles you survive, the first real one always stays with you. The silence stretches a bit between them, but it's not uncomfortable. Then Ruva says softly, tomorrow will make them pay, right? Soren's smile turns sharper, wounded but fierce. We will, she says. But not for revenge. For the fallen. For those who can't fight anymore. Ruva nods slowly. Then quieter. For them? And for my brother. Outside, the night wind rustles the trees, carrying with it the low murmurs of soldiers healing and preparing. Tomorrow waits. Meanwhile, in Zark City. The moon hangs high over Zark City, casting a cold light on the spires of its blackstone palace. Fires still burn in the streets. Not from battle, but from the fury of failed triumphs and hurried retreats. Inside the towering stronghold, tension coils thick in the air. In the grand meeting chamber, where crystal light flickers over obsidian walls, heavy footsteps echo. The doors slam open. Mazel strides in, face thunderous. Dust and blood still clinging to his boots. He doesn't wait to be seated. What is happening, Gander? He demands, voice sharp as steel. Reports say we've suffered huge casualties. Half our force that attacked Durkan Valley wiped out. At the long table, Gander looks up calmly from the map he's studying. His fingers are stained with ink and ash. He doesn't flinch at the accusation. Before he can speak, a woman at the other end of the table intervenes. Varila leans forward, her voice measured. Calm down, Mazel. You're not helping anything by barking. Mazel rounds on her but exhales hard through his nose, reining in his temper. He turns back to Gander. Well? Gander straightens, voice even. It's okay. This one's on me. I relied too much on the intel and didn't consider all the possibilities. His words hang in the air. Mazel stares at him for a moment. Then slowly his shoulders ease. The fury simmers down, replaced by something heavier. We should stop dragging this out, he mutters. No more delays. We already have what we need to raise Imlin to the ground. Gander nods once. That's why I called the four of you. There's a faint shimmer in the air as the chamber's spell locks disengage. A door at the side of the room creaks open. Footsteps enter. Two more. Gratham and Zurich. Gander looks at the four now assembled. Mazel, Varila, Gratham, Zurich. The monsters among monsters. The highest weapons left in their arsenal. You four, Gander says, are our only peak-tier SIXS. No one argues. Zurich crosses his arms. So you want us to move? Not yet, Gander says. But soon. The humans have fielded their own tier 6. He caught us flatfoot, broke through our advance, and crippled our momentum. We can't risk that happening again. After some time, their meeting comes to an end. The air in the chamber is heavy with silence, and no one says a word until Gander stands. I'll forward everything to His Majesty, he says quietly. If he approves our decision, we'll act on it. Until then, rest, recover. And prepare. The others nod one by one. Then they leave, shadows disappearing through ancient stone halls while Gander remains staring at the map. His jaw tight, his fingers clenched around a small iron token. In the dim, reinforced training hall beneath the palace grounds, a quiet storm brews. Alex stands shirtless in the center of the room, sweat clinging to his skin, muscles tense. Around him, dozens of training dummies lie shattered. Scorch marks paint the floor and the mana in the air is dense, almost suffocating. He exhales hard, then flicks his wrist. His sword hums to life in his hand, sharp and crackling. Tier 6 skills pulses through it, barely restrained. He takes a stance. Slashes once. Then again. The attacks are clean. Efficient. Powerful. But not enough. Not even close. He stops. Alex lowers his arm, the skills in the blade dissipating into sparks. His chest heaves. His eyes, sharp, bright, burning with frustration, stare at the charred floor in front of him. Again he mutters. A flash of energy tears a crater in the stone wall. Another dummy explodes into splinters. Still not enough. Not nearly enough. Alex clenches his jaw and breathes in deeply, trying to push back the storm within. Sweat drips from his brow. His body is strong, capable of going toe-to-toe with most tier SIXS. But tier 7, they were different. Chapter 256-258. How to fight a tier 7. Part 2. Chapter 256. Chapter 258. How to fight a tier 7. Part 2. Alex closes his eyes. And remembers. The crypt beneath the ruined temple. The air thick with dust and death. Then the guardian appeared. Tier 7 in form, if not in truth. A corpse given false life. Quasi-tier 7. Even now the memory makes his hands curl into fists. He'd fought it without items. Without buffs. Just raw skill strength. And it was barely enough. Alex exhales slowly, his eyes still shut, the memory vivid and visceral. Every strike back then had felt like carving stone with a blunt knife. Every block like stopping a mountain with bare hands. He opens his eyes. That thing. He mutters, voice low, rough. He turns away from the wreckage and sits at the edge of the reinforced platform, sword resting against his shoulder. The room is quiet now save for the crackle of residual mana dancing in the air. That wasn't even a true tier 7, he mutters into the silence of the chamber. That's the only reason I managed to kill it with just tier 5 strength. Alex lowers his head frowning. Law. That word, unfamiliar and yet painfully clear. Tier 7. The threshold where skills begin to bend the fabric of the world itself. No longer just element motion force, but intention, concept. Suddenly there's a knock. Alex doesn't move from where he sits on the platform. His breathing has calmed, but the frustration still lingers behind his eyes. With a flick of his fingers and a slight mental nudge, the heavy chamber door unlocks and swings open with a low creak. Drea steps inside holding a silver tray. Her movements are light, but her gaze immediately sweeps across the destruction. Shattered dummies, cracked stone, glowing scorch marks. She says nothing of it. Instead she bows slightly and speaks in her usual calm tone. Your Majesty, Sir Gander has sent a report, she says. He marked it as urgent. I thought you should see it immediately. Alex doesn't answer at first. Drea walks forward and sets the tray down beside him. A tall glass sits atop it, glowing faintly with a swirl of mana-rich juice. She glances at him. Also, the juice. To replenish your energy. Alex lets out a breath. Something between a tired sigh and a faint laugh. You really never miss, huh? Alex picks up the glass and takes a sip. The chill hits immediately, sweet, sharp, and soothing. He exhales, the tension in his shoulders easing just a little. All right, he says, setting the glass down. Let's see what Gander has for me. Drea pulls the report from a scroll case tucked beneath her arm and hands it over. Alex unfurls the report and begins reading, his eyes scanning the parchment quickly but with focus. Drea remains quiet, standing a respectful distance away, hands clasped behind her back. Minutes pass. He finishes the last line, then folds the parchment slowly, his fingers drumming once on the edge of it. I suppose it's not easy for Gander to manage all of this, Alex mutters, his tone more thoughtful than critical. But he's doing better than I expected, holding the line, coordinating tier 6, countering enemy pushes. And still thinking ahead. Drea gives a small nod. It's impressive. Alex stands, stretching his shoulders, then glances toward her. Right back to them, he says. Tell Gander I approve their plan. They have full authority to move when ready. Drea bows her head slightly. Right away, Your Majesty. Early morning, Imlin Royal Palace. The cold snap of dawn is broken by a sudden violent bang against the grand oak doors of the royal bedchamber. King Rostel jerks awake, his heart thudding, half lost in a dream of a victory just yesterday. Another bang. Louder. Urgent. He throws the covers off and storms toward the door, flinging it open. Marshal Vaff stands on the other side, still in his armor helm under one arm. His face is pale and drawn, eyes bloodshot from no sleep. Your Majesty, Vaff says, voice taut with urgency. The report just came in. The monsters. They've already breached almost all the territories of the kingdom. Rostel stares at him. What? He roars, disbelieving. Just yesterday we were winning. I know, Sire, Vaff says quickly. But everything turned overnight. They moved faster than expected, no regroup, no rest. 3 separate fronts collapsed in under 6 hours. Rostel steps back, dragging a hand down his face. The 2 spears. Where are they? They're preparing the defenses now, along with the 3 clan representatives. Sir Bulad and Lady Casey are personally going to defend the capital city. How did this happen overnight? Rostel demands, his voice cracking. Vaff hesitates before answering. 2 confirmed peak tier 6 monsters, Your Majesty. Our scouts were wiped out just trying to bring us that intel. Rostel slumps into a chair near the hearth, his crown slightly askew, forgotten. We're done for, he whispers. Is my kingdom really going to fall to monsters? After everything we've built? Vaff drops to one knee in front of him, slamming a fist against his chestplate. Your Majesty, listen. Sir Bulad sent word. They've already requested reinforcements from the Empire. 2 peak tier 6 are en route from the capital. All we have to do is hold. For 3 hours. 3 hours, Rostel echoes, barely breathing. That's all? Yes, Your Majesty. 3 hours. The spears believe we can manage that. Rostel looks up at him, eyes bloodshot but with a flicker of steel returning to his voice. Then by the gods. We will. Wake the nobles. Call every able commander to the throne hall. If we're to fall, we'll fall standing. Vaff stands with a firm nod. Yes, Your Majesty. And tell the people, Rostel adds, rising shakily to his feet. Tell them their king still breathes. Tell them the spears are holding the line. And the Empire is coming. Yes, sire. Vaff turns and rushes out, boots echoing through the marble halls. Rostel remains by the window, gazing out toward the east, where the ridge looms in the morning fog. To think. Just yesterday I was toasting victory, he murmurs. The city should be waking slowly. Shops opening. Bread baking. children running along cobbled streets. But not today. Today the streets are filled with armor-clad soldiers. Barked orders. Walls reinforced with magic barriers and runestones. Dust in the air. Faces pale with exhaustion and tension. The central plaza, usually a market hub, has turned into a temporary command post. Barricades. Crates of weapons. Scrolls passed hand to hand. Sweat-slicked adventurers sit on overturned barrels sharpening their blades. Tier 2s. Tier 3s. A few Tier 4s remain. Most of the Tier 5s are already gone. They simply chose to live. Because today Kita is a death zone. A grizzled veteran named Bryn, missing 2 fingers on his left hand, leans against a shattered fountain puffing on a smoke pipe looking across the square. Around him a dozen adventurers sit or stand uneasily watching the horizon. A young swordsman no older than 20 paces. The Empire's going to come, right? The boy asks, voice uncertain. They'll send reinforcements? Bryn exhales a thin line of smoke and grunts. Yeah. Eventually. That's what King Rostel said. Another adventurer, a woman with a crossbow slung over her back, snorts. Hell, they'll only come if the city still exists when they get here. The boy falls silent. His grip tightens on his sword. Bryn glances around at the group. Anyone still here isn't in it for coin anymore. Most packed up and left last night. He jerks his chin toward the barricades. You lot still here? You're here 'cause you've got something left in this place. Family, pride, or just plain stupid. A chuckle ripples weakly through the group. Then a quiet voice speaks from the back. It's an old healer sitting cross-legged on a crate, robes soot-stained and torn. I was born here. Never left. This city fed me. Raised me. I ain't gonna watch it burn while I run like a coward. A younger woman, the archer, mutters under her breath, you think we can win? Bryn eyes her. No, he says flatly. But we can buy time. Hold long enough for the Empire's reinforcement to arrive. Hold long enough for the civilians to evacuate. In the eastern barracks, Ash Edge clan quarters. The barracks are loud with movement. Soldiers preparing for deployment, commanders shouting orders, and mages scribbling defensive glyphs across the stone walls. But inside the largest tent at the heart of the compound, the noise fades beneath thick canvas walls and silence thick with tension. Valira stands tall in front of her uncle, fists clenched at her sides. Her storm-gray eyes, so like Hadrick's, burn with frustration. I can fight, she says. Uncle, I'm ready. I've trained for this. I know you're ready. Hadrick cuts her off, voice deep and unwavering. But that's not the point. He stands by the tent's war table, arms crossed. The map in front of him is littered with markers, each one a pocket of chaos and danger. You are the heir of the Ash Edge clan, he says. I won't gamble your life. Not when the clan's future depends on it. Valira steps closer. Then let me choose what kind of leader I'll be. One who hides when her people bleed? One who watches from the sidelines while others give their lives? There's a difference between bravery and recklessness, Valira, he says. This war isn't about honor. It's survival. You're too valuable to lose here. To the side, 2 figures shift uncomfortably. Gresrin and Salvin, Valira's closest guards and companions. Gresrin, the older of the 2, rubs the back of his neck and sighs. Valira, let's just go. You know how firm Sir Hadrick is. Arguing won't change his mind. Chapter 257-259. End the Imlan Kingdom, Part 1. Chapter 257. Chapter 259. End the Imlan Kingdom, Part 1. Valira rounds on him. I'm not just arguing, I'm trying. Doesn't that matter? I don't want to be protected, I want to do something. Salvin speaks up next, voice low but steady. Sir Hadrick is right, Valira. Our enemy isn't just dangerous, they're devastating. You step onto that field, and if one of those Tier XS finds you, I'm not helpless, Salvin. She snaps. I'm Tier 5. I can at least distract them or defend. You're not listening, Hadrick says, voice now like stone. This isn't about what you can do. It's about what I won't allow. He walks around the table until he's directly in front of her. His towering presence dwarfs hers, but Valira doesn't flinch. Your family, he says, quieter now. The only child of my brother. The future of our name. If I lose you out there, I won't just lose a fighter. I'll lose everything we've built. Valira swallows hard. She looks away, jaw clenched, shoulders trembling with unspoken words. Fine. I give up. She mutters. Her voice is hoarse, barely audible. Hadrick doesn't speak right away. I'm sorry, she adds. If I'm being stubborn, I hate feeling useless. Hadrick's expression softens, a rare thing on his scarred face. He places a hand gently on her shoulder. It's all right, he says. That's in the blood of the Ash Edge clan. Being stubborn, I mean, comes with the name. Valira lets out a shaky breath and finally meets his eyes. Uncle Hadrick. He lifts his brows. Promise me, she says quietly. Promise me you'll come back. He freezes. The tent is silent now save for the muffled sounds of distant shouting and the clink of armor outside. Please, Valira adds, her voice cracking. I don't care how strong you are. Just promise. Hadrick stares at her for a long moment, then slowly pulls her into a brief but firm embrace. Catches her off guard, but she sinks into it, her face pressed against his chest plate. I can't make that promise, he says, voice low. Not in a war like this. Valira starts to protest, but he tightens his grip slightly. But I can promise, he continues, that I'll fight like hell to make it back. I'll claw my way through monsters' blood and gods if I have to. That I swear. Valira nods, her hands gripping the sides of his armor. Good, she whispers. That's good enough. He releases her gently, then turns to Gresrin and Salvin. Get her out with the evacuation party. She's priority one. Both nod without hesitation. Valira doesn't argue again. But as she's led out of the tent, she glances back one last time. Hadrick's already back at the war table, issuing orders, his back straight as a tower. She doesn't say goodbye. And neither does he. Because both know, in this war goodbyes might never make it home. 1 hour later. A deep guttural rumble rolls over the land like thunder before a storm. The air thickens. Soldiers along the ramparts pause mid-motion, eyes turning eastward. Horses whinny. Mages flinch. Archers drop their hands from their bows, breath caught in their lungs. Something is coming. Then, boom. The ground trembles as if the world itself recoils. And from the gray mist beyond the plains they emerge. A tide. An endless heaving ocean of monsters. Claws, fangs, armored hides. A 1,000,000-strong army surging forward like a living wall. Their roars shake birds from the sky. Dust and wind rise around them like a second storm. At the head of this monstrous sea, 2 titanic figures walk side by side. Mazel steps out first. His footsteps crack the stone beneath him. Twin war axes rest on his broad shoulders, their blades still dark with blood from conquered lands. Crimson veins glow beneath his obsidian skin, pulsing brighter as his aura swells. His eyes burn like molten fire as they scan the city walls. Cold, calculating, waiting for challenge. Flames begin to gather at his feet, licking across the ground. With each step the temperature rises, sweat beads on every soldier's skin. And none of it is from fear alone. Beside him the air shimmers. Virila the Stormrend descends from above, wings slicing down like blades of silence. She lands with deceptive grace, her serpentine form curling slightly as the wind coils violently around her. Her scales shimmer like hammered steel under morning light, and her eyes gleam with eerie intelligence. The very sky seems to shift with her arrival. Clouds churn overhead. A storm brews instantly. And when she speaks, her voice tears through the wind like thunder from the heavens. You smell it too, Mazel? She hisses, her tone lazy but lethal. Fear. They stink of it. Mazel grunts, cracking his neck. Let them. It'll season their ashes. On the wall Bulad grips the stone railing with white knuckles. His massive halberd is strapped to his back and his face is taut with strain. Next to him Casey stands frozen, her usually calm face pale. A ripple of primal dread coils in her gut as she meets Virila's gaze even from across the field. What is that? She whispers. I can't even breathe right. The pressure from the 2 approaching monsters is like standing beneath an avalanche that hasn't fallen yet. But will. Any second. Some Tier 3 soldiers drop to their knees. Others stagger backward, eyes wide and wild. Bulad grits his teeth hard enough to draw blood. He clenches his jaw. Casey. Shield. Casey flinches, then blinks, snapping out of it. All right. She thrusts her hands forward and the runestones along the wall flare to life. With a deep hum and a shudder, a towering dome of energy bursts into existence over the capital. A glowing blue shell of protection encasing the inner walls. Magical sigils twist in the air around it like celestial rings. The sound of the shield activating echoes like a bell toll. A line drawn in the sand. Bulad straightens his back. His voice is iron. This city doesn't fall today. From behind them generals, commanders, and captains call out across the wall. Archers take position. Mages begin their incantations. Soldiers steel their nerves. The fear remains, but now it has something to cling to. Bulad's voice cuts through the chaos. Look at me, he shouts. Everyone. Hundreds of heads turn to him. What you feel right now is real. That fear in your chest? That's what it means to be human in the face of monsters. But it's also what gives us our edge. We feel because we live. And that's why we fight. So we can keep living. For our families, for our names, for this city. He gestures at the massive figures approaching. Let them see we're not prey. Let them see what it costs to take this city. A roar goes up from the wall. Shaky at first but growing stronger. Louder. Real. Below, Mazel watches silently. Then he lifts his war axes from his back. The flames rise like pillars. The wind dies down for just a moment. Then he raises his voice and it crashes across the battlefield like a war drum. For the one who gave you a second chance. Mazel bellows, his voice booming like a god's fury. The horde of monsters stops. Just for a breath. Every clawed foot, every armored hoof halts. Every staff, every gleaming fang turns toward him. For the honor of his majesty. His twin axes slam together, sending out a shockwave of molten sparks. Attack! The world erupts. Siege horns scream from the monster ranks like banshees loosed from the abyss. The front lines surge forward. An ocean of fangs and claws crashing against the earth with a sound like thunder. Siege weapons, monstrous constructs of bone, steel, and rune-bound obsidian grown to life. The stones flare, blood-red, blue, sickly green. Magic floods the constructs. The air warps with heat and pressure. Catapults, ballistae, and tower-mounted arcane cannons lurch up toward the walls. And then, boom, they fire. Searing bolts of enchanted steel and flames scream through the air, crashing into the shimmering barrier around the city. Explosions ripple across the shield, sending shockwaves that rattle rooftops and shatter glass. The city trembles under the weight of their assault. But the barrier holds. Spells rain from the sky. Lightning, shadow flame, frost spears, curses. Hundreds of arcane missiles cast by the monster's tier 3 and 4 mages. Their chants echo like the gnashing of teeth. But amidst the chaos, Mazel steps forward. His eyes close. The twin axes drop to his sides, point down, buried into the earth. The ground steams where they touch. He spreads his arms wide and the runes carved into his muscles ignite. Bright red brands that glow from his throat to his wrists. From his chest a burning light begins to pulse. The monster army doesn't flinch. They kneel. They know what comes. Mazel opens his mouth and roars. The sound isn't just a sound. It's a tier 6 skill. A nameless wrath given form. It tears across the battlefield, rips through the clouds, and crashes into the city shield like the fist of a god. A massive spectral effigy forms behind him. A burning titan made of molten war smoke and flame, mimicking Mazel's posture, towering higher than the tallest spire in the capital. It raises its arms in sync with him, then slams both axes downward in a blazing X. Croc! The city's shield warps under the pressure, the sky turning blood orange as the impact flashes brighter than the sun. A shockwave blasts outward in every direction. Scorching sand into glass, flipping carts, hurling debris from the outer walls. Chapter 258-260. End the Imlan Kingdom, Part 2. Chapter 258. Chapter 260. End the Imlan Kingdom, Part 2. But the barrier holds. Inside, the capital soldiers are thrown to the ground. Windows shatter across the plaza. Birds fall from the sky mid-flight. Every wardstone in the city's defense system flares to maximum output, humming like a swarm of angry gods. And on the walls, silence. Dozens of men are collapsed, gasping, crying, vomiting. Some are unconscious. Others, worse. A young tier 2 soldier near Casey stares blankly ahead. His lips tremble. Then his bladder gives out. Wetness pools at his boots. He's not the only one. Dozens of younger soldiers, those who've never seen true war, who've only trained with wooden weapons and sparred against dummies, break. Casey clutches her thin sword so tightly her knuckles crack. Gods. That wasn't even a direct hit. Bulad's face is a granite mask, but his voice rings with fury. Get up. He roars louder than the wind, louder than the screams. I said get up. Some soldiers flinch, others blink through tears, and slowly some begin to rise. Shaky, ashamed, but still breathing. This isn't the time to cry, Bulad growls. You can cry when it's over. If you want to piss yourself, do it on their corpses, not your knees. He storms past a cowering squad, grabbing one by the collar and hauling him to his feet. You wanted to be soldiers? You wanted to protect your homes? Then fight. Another crash slams against the barrier. This one sends cracks spiderwebbing through a portion near the eastern tower. The mages nearby scream, their bodies glowing with strain as they pour more mana into stabilizing the shield. The human soldiers, battered by terror, begin to recover. Bit by bit, they grit their teeth. They rise. The dome still stands, their city still breathes. And that's enough. On the other side of the battlefield, where the monster tide surges like a living flood, Mazel stands unmoved, eyes still glowing from the wrath he unleashed. He watches as the shield still holds. Not bad, he mutters. Virila shifts beside him, arms crossed, tail flicking with idle grace. They didn't break. Not fully. She leans her head to one side, flexing her fingers. Sparks of wind dance between her claws. Should I start? I'm getting bored here. Those two, Gratham and Zurich, are probably fighting the Imperial dogs with a smile on their faces. Mazel doesn't answer immediately. He just stares at the distant capital, at the stubborn glow of the shield still holding firm. Then finally he shrugs. Do what you want. Virila smirks. Still sulking because you lost the bet? Mazel's eye twitches. Just slightly. Could have been me up there carving through those peak tier 6 humans. But these weaklings will do, Virila says, stretching her neck. The wind around her coils tighter, sharp, restless. I don't find joy in bullying weaklings, Mazel mutters. Varila grins. Oh, I do. She vanishes in a blink. Crack. The air implodes behind her, leaving a roaring spiral of torn wind in her wake. She rockets toward the shield. Fast enough that her form becomes a streak of silver and blue. The wind parts before her, screaming. The monster army instinctively ducks, shielding their eyes as she tears across the battlefield like a divine spear. Bulad sees it coming. Incoming. But it's too late for commands. Boom! Varila slams into the barrier with her shoulder and the dome wails. Shockwaves hammer outward in concentric rings, shaking buildings, toppling towers near the wall's edge. The barrier flares white from the force, straining, flickering before it stabilizes again. On the wall, Casey stumbles. What the hell was that? Again. Varila cackles from above. She's already rising. She hovers midair, wind streaming off her body like a living storm. Her arms spread wide and her voice pierces the sky. Tier 5. Spiral Rend. Gale Execution. A dozen spears of solid wind form around her, shaped from compressed air, sharper than obsidian. They spin around her like orbiting moons, and then with a flick of her hand they shoot down. Few whip. Few whip. Few whip. The spears slam into the barrier, each one hitting with the force of a collapsing building. Cracks spider across the dome. Mages along the wall scream from the mana feedback, dropping to their knees. Inside the city, alarms blare. Bulad sees the cracks deepen across the barrier's inner webbing. The mana flux is unstable now, too many overload points. He grips his spear tight, the haft buzzing with barely contained lightning. Let's go, Casey, he says grimly, turning toward her. If we let that monster keep playing, this barrier won't last much longer. Casey nods, breath sharp. We should be able to hold her off long enough. Reinforcements are en route. We just have to survive until then. She hesitates for a heartbeat, eyes flicking toward the distant ridge where Mazel watches like a silent god. If that other monster moves, Bulad follows her gaze. Mazel stands perfectly still, arms crossed. Bulad's voice is low. Looks like that bastard's not going to interfere. That monster probably thinks we're not worth the effort. Another boom. The barrier shudders again. Bulad doesn't wait. He kicks off the rampart and soars into the air, his spear spinning with a roar of thunder. Lightning arcs from his shoulders, trailing behind him like a comet's tail. Casey follows, water spiraling around her thin blade, her form cutting through the air like a glint of steel. Above the city, Varila is preparing her next strike when a crack splits the sky. Bulad appears in front of her in a blink, spear cocked back. His body blazes with crackling arcs. Tier 5. Thunderbreaker. He thrusts. The spear becomes a bolt of thunder. Pure force explodes from the point of contact. Varila barely crosses her arms in time. The blow hammers her through the air, sending her spiraling dozens of meters before she rights herself with a flip and growls. Oh, now we're playing. Casey doesn't speak. She's already moving. She flashes beside Varila with a burst of speed, blade trailing spirals of water. She slashes upward. Tier 5 flow cut. A graceful arc. Sharp enough to slice a boulder in half. Rakes toward Varila's exposed flank. Varila tilts midair and lets the edge skim past her skin, deflecting most of the blow with wind. She smirks. Cute. Bulad appears behind her. Not done. Boom. Another flash of thunder. His spear swings sideways like a collapsing mountain. Tier 5. Stormbreaker arc, and Varila twists midair just in time, wind wrapping around her as a buffer. The impact sends shockwaves through the clouds, splitting them like torn paper. Lightning cracks in jagged forks behind her as she's forced back again. But she's laughing. Varila's laughter rolls across the sky like a songbird in a storm. She spins once in the air, flipping backward lazily, as if stretching her limbs after a nap. Wind curls around her fingers like eager serpents, coiling and uncoiling in spiraling patterns of silver and white. Tunon? She says, tail flicking playfully. How generous of you. Bulad doesn't answer. His eyes are locked onto her, unblinking. The spear in his hand vibrates with energy. Each pulse of thunder building beneath the surface of his skin like a storm barely contained. Casey lands a few meters behind him, breathing steadily, her sword lowered but ready. Water flickers along her blade in tiny waves, droplets floating midair as if gravity has forgotten them. She's not taking us seriously, Casey mutters. We need to change that. Bulad's jaw tightens. Then we'll make her. Varila sighs dramatically. Do you know how long it's been since I've fought someone slow? I almost miss it. She spreads her arms. Come then. Show me your terror. Before the wind can even finish coiling, Bulad vanishes. Crack. He reappears behind her, low and fast. His body enveloped in a sphere of condensed lightning. His voice roars as the clouds above spiral. Tier 6. Heaven's Spear Descent. The skies answer him. A spear of lightning 10 meters long rips down from the heavens like divine punishment, aimed directly at Varila's head. But her smile widens. Wind explodes outward in a dome. Tier 6. Cyclone Throne. The lightning strikes the swirling barrier, but instead of penetrating it spins violently around her caught in her vortex. The blast becomes unstable, unraveling with a thunderous shriek that tears apart the sky, but not her. She grins, stepping out of the dissolving wind like a queen from her court. I was wondering when you'd stop holding back. KZ doesn't hesitate. Tier 6. Sea Chain Sever. The sky darkens behind her. Water crashes upward in a towering spiral, formed from the moisture in the clouds. Chains of liquid steel form from the vortex, each one snapping forward like a whip. They lash toward Varela from 5 directions. One binding her arms, another her legs, the last 3 aimed at her neck, midsection, and tail. The air hisses as pressure collapses around the strike. Varela still smirking. Oh? She raises a hand. Tier 6. Windbreaker Spires. A dozen jagged spires of hardened air burst upward from her position, piercing into the water chains. Some are deflected. Others twist. One chain wraps around her ankle, another grazes her shoulder. But she spins again, twisting out of the tangle midair like a dancer in a storm. She lets the water wrap around her arm, just to prove she can shatter it. With a pulse of her core, boom! She explodes outward. Shockwaves ripple in every direction. Both KZ and Bulad are thrown back by the force. Not far, but enough to stall their rhythm. Bulad regains position, first gritting his teeth. How is that monster so strong? I know, KZ snaps, wiping blood from the corner of her mouth. Chapter 259-261. The shield is down. Chapter 259. Chapter 261. The shield is down. Mazel watches from his distant perch, arms still folded, eyes half-lidded like he's watching a game he already knows the ending to. The wind from Varela's last shockwave reaches him seconds later, tugging at the loose strands of his hair. She could have killed them in minutes, he says quietly, more to himself than anyone else. But she's playing with them. His tone is flat, neither approving nor disapproving, just stating a fact. Far away from the battlefield, far even from the monster tide, the air itself bends in unnatural stillness. Gratham's molten skin pulses faintly beneath his stony armor, the magma lines across his body glowing like veins of fire. His massive arms rest on the haft of a jagged obsidian warhammer, its head still steaming from the heat it constantly bleeds. Beside him drifts Zurich, his void warg form barely tethered to reality. Shadows cling to his fur like living smoke, the edges of his body blurring and reforming in slow, deliberate pulses. His eyes are bottomless voids, the kind that make the air hum with wrongness. They wait. Neither moves. Neither speaks at first. Finally Gratham snorts, sending a thin stream of smoke curling from his nostrils. They're late. Zurich's ears twitch. His gaze sharpens on the horizon. There they are, he murmurs. 2 humans. Flying toward us as fast as lightning. Gratham turns his head slightly, magma light flaring under his cracked skin. They stop when they see us, Zurich adds, his tone almost amused. The first human, lean sharpied, halts midair, a dagger already in his hand. Electric arcs run along its edge, humming with deadly intent. Oh, the man says, his voice steady despite the distance. You're here to stop us from helping. You monsters are smarter than the ones on this continent. Didn't think I'd see the day. Zurich tilts his head, his voice a low growl. Is that supposed to be an insult? The other human, a massive figure with broad shoulders, a colossal hammer resting across his back, steps forward in the air. His armor bears deep scars, and faint tremors ripple in the space around him as if the earth itself breathes with him. Gratham grins, wide teeth like glowing stone. Entertain us, humans. The words are barely out of his mouth before the dagger user blurs forward. Faster than sound. A flash of white-blue arcs across the gap, lightning snapping in his wake. Zurich doesn't move until the man's blade is inches from his neck. SHHK. Space itself twists. The human's slash cuts through a ripple of darkness, only to find Zurich gone. His instincts scream. He spins dagger up just as a claw swipes for his spine. Sparks fly as steel meets void-forged talon. Lightning surges from the dagger, wrapping around his claws and detonating in a thunderclap. The shockwave forces Zurich back, but he fades into nothing before momentum can toss him away. Below, Gratham's opponent charges. The hammer user crashes through the air like a meteor, the very sky trembling with each step. A brown-gold aura erupts around him, jagged chunks of stone orbiting his form. Tier 5. Earthbreak Rush. The man slams down onto an invisible platform midair and launches himself at Gratham hammer first. Gratham plants his feet and swings his warhammer upward in a molten arc. Tier 5. Magma Surge. When their weapons meet, the impact sends a shockwave down to the distant ground, tearing trenches into the earth far below. Lava splashes from Gratham's hammerhead, splattering against the human's armor and instantly cooling into jagged stone. The man grunts, twisting his hammer free and stomping on the air. Each step solidifying as a plate of compacted earth forms beneath his boots. With a roar he spins hammer trailing a cyclone of rock. Zurich mid-clash with the dagger wielder flickers back into sight for just a heartbeat, just long enough to catch a slash aimed at his throat between two claws. He forces the human down with raw strength only for the dagger to vanish in a flash of lightning and reappear at Zurich's flank. The Void Ward growls in faint irritation. Good tricks. The man smirks. Thank you. Gratham and his foe crash together again, the Earthwielder slamming his hammer into the ground. Well, the air below them, causing a shock wave of solid rock to erupt upward like a blooming mountain. Gratham walks through it, each boulder melting to slag before touching him. You'll have to do better than that. Gratham bellows, warhammer swinging in a glowing arc. The heat distorts the air, turning the space between them into a furnace. Every clash between them is not just a collision of weapons, it's a collision of mountains. When Gratham's hammer meets the humans again, the sound is less an impact and more a mountain exploding. The air screams as the shockwave rips outward, flattening everything within miles. The ground far below erupts into chaos. Massive craters forming ridges, splitting molten lines, carving their way into the soil from the sheer bleed-off of Gratham's heat. High above Zurich and the dagger wielder are blurs to the naked eye. Without Tier 6 perception, it would look like they vanish and reappear in random points in the sky. Each reappearance marked by an instant detonation, a white flash shockwave, or a fresh crater below. The human darts in again, his dagger carving an arc of lightning so bright it paints shadows onto the clouds. Tier 6. Stormpiercer. The strike rips through the void mist, clinging to Zurich, detonating in a sphere of blinding white-blue. The explosion clears the clouds for miles, sending wind currents into violent spirals. But Zurich steps out of the blast sideways as if the explosion never existed in his reality. His claw lashes out once, one swipe, and the space it cuts through unravels, leaving a pitch-black gash hanging in the air. The human barely pivots away before the tear snaps shut, dragging the surrounding air with it in a deafening implosion. Zurich's voice rumbles through the air, low and steady. Not bad, human. You are better than I expected. The dagger wielder freezes mid-flight, one eyebrow twitching. Huh? Am I hearing that right? His tone sharpens into a snarl. A lowly race like you monster looks down on me? Zurich's expression doesn't change. Only the faint shimmer of his void aura swirls a little faster. Monster. The human spits electricity, gathering on his blade. I'll show you why. In the hundreds of continents in this world, humans reign supreme on most of them. His form blurs. In an instant, two separate Tier 6 auras ignite around him. One a roaring storm of lightning, the other a sharp pressure-like force that distorts the air. Power rips through the space between them, shattering the closest cloud banks and bending the light around his body. Zurich just stares for a heartbeat, then smirks. 2. The air howls as his own energy erupts. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 distinct Tier 6 buffs slam into reality around him. Space warps like a cracked mirror, shadows splitting into layered copies, and the pressure alone forces the human's lightning back toward him in spiraling arcs. The dagger wielder's smirk dies instantly. What? Below, the hammer wielder has his own declaration. Tier 6. Mountain King's Endurance. Tier 6. Earth Titan's Wrath. The ground, miles below, shakes under the weight of his new aura, jagged spikes of stone rising even this high into the air. Gratham watches and laughs, a molten growl rolling from his chest. So proud of your tricks. Then he ignites. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 separate Tier 6 buffs burst outward, magma veins surging, brighter jagged armor thickening, the very heat around him turning white-hot. The sky glows red above them, and the human's earthen aura begins to crack under the sheer temperature. Impossible, the hammer wielder mutters, gripping his weapon tighter. Gratham steps forward once, and the air warps from the heat. The hammer wielder tries to brace, feet spreading, aura flaring. But the magma giant moves faster than his size should allow. The warhammer arcs down like a comet, smashing into the human's guard with such force that the sky fractures, a visible ring of heat distortion expanding outward. The man's arms buckle. His own hammer is ripped from his grip, spinning into the distance. Before he can retrieve it, Gratham's massive hand closes around his chest. The armor hisses, melts, and the human screams as molten cracks spread across it. Gratham grins. Not so proud now. He swings the human like a club, smashing him into the nearest mountain, shattering it into dust. Above, Zurich has shifted from testing to hunting. The dagger wielder darts in with a desperate feint, lightning flashing, only to stab through an afterimage. Claws rake across his back, shredding through enchanted leather. His scream is cut off when Zurich's paw, nearly the size of the man's torso, slams into him, sending him hurtling through the air. The human tumbles for hundreds of meters before stopping himself midair, blood dripping from his mouth. You're playing with me? He growls. Zurich appears in front of him without a sound. Yes. Back at the city. An hour have passed since the first assault. The barrier, once a solid dome of shimmering light, now flickers and dims, spiderweb cracks crawling across its surface. The soldiers inside are battered shadows of their earlier selves. Armor dented, faces streaked with blood and dirt. Breath coming in ragged bursts. They still haven't come, one soldier pants, leaning on his spear. They're not coming, another mutters, voice trembling. On the walls captains shout orders, but their voices are hoarse from hours of command. Archers loose arrows into the mass of monsters outside, but each volley is weaker than the last. A deep boom echoes as Varilla's distant battle shakes the air and several soldiers flinch. Then, a sharp crack. Everyone freezes. The barrier's surface trembles, and then shatters like glass under a hammer. The sound is deafening. A high crystalline scream that echoes across the battlefield. Shards of pure light dissolve into motes fading into the air. Chapter 262-62. Destroy each other. Chapter 260. Chapter 262. Destroy each other. Above the city she hovers with lazy confidence, tail swaying in slow arcs, her clothes barely torn despite the hours of battle. In her hands, held as casually as a merchant displaying goods, are the severed heads of Bulad and Kazi. Their blood drips in languid trails, scattering in the wind before reaching the ground. Gasps and screams ripple through the soldiers below. A few stumble back. Others drop their weapons entirely. Even the captains on the wall falter, the sight punching the breath from their lungs. Varilla doesn't shout. She doesn't need to. Her voice carries as if the wind itself bends to her will. Human, she begins, her tone almost conversational, almost gentle. Yet the weight of it presses into every chest like an invisible blade. I will give you a chance. A low murmur spreads through the troops. Some look at each other. Others look only at the dirt beneath their boots. Before I order my soldiers to finish what we started, she continues, raising the heads a fraction higher, you may surrender. Her golden eyes narrow, glinting with something that isn't quite kindness. But there is a price. She points one clawed finger lazily toward the city streets. Kill those who will not surrender. Help us kill them. Prove your loyalty and I promise you. She lets the words hang like the moment before lightning strikes. My soldiers will not touch you. The humans look at each other, the silence stretching thin. The air stinks of sweat, blood and fear. Then Hadrick's voice cuts through it. Listen everyone. Don't be tempted. Are you really going to kill your comrades just to survive? His words hit like a thrown stone, making several soldiers stiffen. A few glance toward him, uncertain, desperate. But Tressa, her jaw tight, takes one step forward. Her blade is already in her hand. I'm sorry, Hadrick, she says, her voice trembling, but I don't want to die here. Hadrick's eyes widen. Tressa. She lunges. Steel screams against steel as their weapons clash. The shock of their Tier 6 auras colliding sends dust swirling across the wall. Are you crazy? Hadrick snarls, forcing her back a step. You're going to be a slave of the monsters. Tressa grits, her teeth, sparks flashing where their swords lock. Better their pet than dead in this gutter. High above, Varilla tilts her head, eyes narrowing in faint amusement. Don't worry, she calls down, her tone like a lullaby wrapped in venom. You won't be a slave if you surrender. Your status will be lower than our pets, though. Her smile curves just enough to chill the blood. But it's still better than a slave, right? The hesitation shatters. Some humans shout surrender. Others shout defiance. And then the first blade sinks into a man's back and everything breaks. The wall becomes a frenzy. Steel clashing against steel, screams ringing in the open air. Friends turn on friends, Tier 5s cutting down Tier 4s, arrows meant for monsters finding human throats instead. Varilla watches the chaos spread, the corner of her mouth curling in satisfaction. Her voice slices through the din. Kill anyone who didn't surrender. The monsters surge forward, pouring into the city like a tide of teeth and claws, cutting down those still resisting. Above it all, Hadrick and Tressa's blades spark again, and again, their duel now just one heartbeat in a storm of betrayal. Varilla drifts back through the blood-hazed air, leaving the chaos to devour itself. The screams below fade into background music as she touches down on a jagged rooftop where Mazel waits. I guess we're almost done here, she says, letting the two severed heads drop unceremoniously onto the tiles with a wet thud. Mazel glances at them, then at her. You really take your sweet time with those two humans. Her lips curl, slow and deliberate. You should have seen the fear in their faces. She runs a claw along her cheek as if savoring the memory. A sudden shift in the air makes the rooftop tremble. Two crushing auras slam into the battlefield. Varilla turns her head, eyes narrowing as Gratham and Zurich descend from above, their presence bending the wind. Oh, you two are here already, she says lightly. What about the two humans? They managed to flee, Gratham rumbles, his massive frame casting half the rooftop in shadow. Mazel clicks his tongue. TSSK. You let them go. Zurich crosses his arms, the jagged plates along his forearms still steaming. It would have taken us far too long to hunt them down and finish them. Gratham gives a low grunt, then tilts his head toward his right shoulder. A broad gash mars his armor, and in his hand he holds a blood-slicked human arm, the flesh still warm. I did manage to take the arm of the one I was fighting, he says, tossing it aside like refuse. Varilla's gaze flickers to it briefly before she smirks. Good enough. The four of them step to the edge of the rooftop, the city below writhing with fire smoke and dying screams. Predators ready to sink their claws into what's left. The next day the news spreads like wildfire. From the merchant districts to the farmlands, from noble manors to military barracks, whispers of the fall of the Imlan kingdom are on every tongue. But it isn't just the destruction of another border kingdom that chills the empire's people. It's the names carried on that wind. Bulad, Kazi, the 18th and 19th spear of the empire. Gone. By noon the capital is restless. Crowds gather at every notice board reading the official proclamation nailed there by trembling scribes. The empire's black and gold banners hang heavy over the streets, but they do little to disguise the unease that coils like smoke through the air. Inside the Grand War Hall, the leaders of the 19 remaining affiliated forces stand in a half-circle around the emperor's dais. Emperor Varnan's voice is low at first, almost calm, but it carries like steel dragged over stone. The monsters have crossed the final line. They have slaughtered 2 of my spears, heroes of the empire. They have sent a message of fear. His gaze sweeps over them sharp as a blade. We will answer with fire. A leader of a clan, an older man with a deep scar across his cheek, steps forward. Your Majesty, if they could defeat Bulad and Kazi, then we will drown them in the strength of all our forces, the emperor cuts in, his voice rising, echoing against the marble pillars. From this day forward the monsters are not an inconvenience. They are not a border problem anymore. They are a threat to the empire's heart. A murmur ripples through the chamber. The murmur fades when the emperor's gaze hardens. I order every one of the 19 affiliated forces to mobilize. No half measures. Empty your treasuries if you must. You will go all out in this war. Velkane, leader of the Ashej clan, stands near the edge of the circle, his arms folded behind his back. His face is unreadable, but his eyes are not. He sees it clearly. Every man and woman here sees it. It's a command to bleed for the empire while the imperial core watches from behind their walls. The emperor continues, voice like a whip crack. Do not mistake my words for a request. Each of you will lead your own forces into the field. You will hold the lines. You will strike their nests. You will die before you retreat. Am I understood? The room answers as one, though the harmony is forced. Yes, Your Majesty. Velkane's eyes move just enough to catch the other leaders. The king of Dorthale shifts his jaw as though grinding teeth. The silver-haired matron of House Sarev keeps her expression flat, but her hands are clenched around her cane. They understand as well as he does. None of them can refuse. The emperor's shadow stretches long across the polished floor. The spears are not mere soldiers. They are the empire's teeth. Even those at the bottom of the ranking are worth more than hundreds of thousand ordinary soldiers. And yet, his voice tightens like stone under pressure. 2 are gone. A hush blankets the hall. The emperor's knuckles whiten on the armrest of his throne. Even our highest spears, peak tier 6, have returned with wounds they may never recover from. This is no longer about victory, it is about survival. Silence again. Nobody dares break it. Velkane says nothing, his expression carved from stone. But in the stillness his thoughts are sharp as a drawn blade. The emperor is in no mood for challenge. And the Ashej clan, like every kingdom and clan here, is bound in chains of loyalty and subordination. Chains that grow heavier when the emperor's mood is black. The order has been given. They will march without any choice. Ashej clan territory. Velkane's boots strike the cobblestone with measured steps as he crosses the gate into the Ashej stronghold. The air here is different, thicker, quieter, without the constant drumbeat of the imperial capital. It smells faintly of iron and pine, a scent that has always meant home. Past the outer walls the guards bow as he passes. His face remains unreadable, though his shoulders carry the weight of the emperor's command like a second set of armor. Near the central courtyard Valira is already there, pacing. The moment she sees him she doesn't wait. She runs forward, her braid whipping behind her. Dad, she says, her voice tight. We need to help Uncle Hadrick. Velkane slows but doesn't stop until they're standing face to face. Let's talk inside, Valira. The calm in his voice makes her chest ache. She expected urgency, anger, anything but this cool stillness. But she says nothing. She knows this look. Chapter 261-263. The New Carnessa. Chapter 261. Chapter 263. The New Carnessa. In the next few days the war grinds on. The 19 affiliated forces shift and brace, supporting one another across battlefields that burn day and night. Shirsun Town, once a quiet trading hub, is now a war zone. The streets are clogged with barricades, overturned carts, and the corpses of soldiers who tried to hold the line. On the north wall, a tier for commander shouts above the clash of steel and the roar of inhuman voices. Form ranks. Hold that breach. Archers cover the left flank. Damn it, move! But his voice is swallowed by chaos. The enemy soldiers' monstrous eyes glowing with hunger for blood tear through the defenders like wolves in a pen of sheep. And at the front of the assault Carnessa moves like a shadow with teeth. Once timid, once afraid to even meet an enemy's gaze, she now walks in carnage like it's her rightful home. Mazel's training has burned the fear out of her, leaving only precision and hunger for the kill. Her whip snaps out with a sound like a thunderclap, the barbed tip coiling around the neck of a human soldier. Before he can even scream, she pulls, not to drag him toward her but to slice. The whip tightens, cuts through skin, muscle, and vein. His head tumbles free and the spray of blood doesn't fall. It hangs in the air, trembling under her control. Carnessa's lips curl. Bleed for me. The floating droplets twist, stretch, and lance outward, spearing into 3 more soldiers at once. The crimson needles pierce through armor gaps as if drawn by instinct, finding the heart each time. They drop in unison, their blood joining the swirling mass orbiting her like a slow storm. Behind her, one of the monster commander, just like her, laughs, watching her work. You're wasting time, Carnessa. Why play with them? She cracks the whip again, this time tangling a soldier's arm and yanking him forward. She steps in close, palm against his chest. I'm not playing. Blood bursts from his pores like water from a burst pipe, drawn out of him in a rush that leaves him pale before he hits the ground. Another skill flares. The blood already in the air hardens, shaping into jagged crimson blades that hover around her like a crown of murder. With a flick of her wrist, they fly, cutting through the rear line, soldiers screaming as they fall. The Tier 4 captain sees her now, eyes wide. Focus fire on that woman, now. But it's too late. Carnessa spins whip, singing, sending its barbs across the wall in a wide arc. The soldiers who try to dodge are caught by the flying blood blades, instead cutting down men in a perfect half circle around her. The commander's grin widens. Little Carnessa, once timid and skittish. And now? Who would have thought? She glances at him, eyes cold, then looks back at the surviving defenders. No more than a dozen on this section of the wall. I was afraid because I was weak, she says softly, almost to herself. The whip coils, blood swirls tighter, and her voice sharpens like a blade. I'm not weak anymore. By the time the sun dips low, the streets of Shursun town are silent except for the crackle of fire and the groans of the dying. The banners of the defenders are torn and trampled into the mud, their colors drowned in red. Carnessa walks through the ruined main square, her whip still wet, the faint orbit of blood around her slowly dissipating as her power settles. Commander Zombender, a hulking monster with a plated hide and jagged tusks, approaches from the west street, stepping over a shattered cart. His voice rumbles with approval. Carnessa, you've become even more powerful than yesterday. From the side, another figure joins them. A woman monster with long bone-like claws and a predatory smile. Sayan's eyes glint as she studies Carnessa. By the way, aren't you close to His Majesty? Carnessa looks at her for a moment, the faintest curve of a smile tugging at her lips. Yeah. His Majesty is my savior. He bought me when I was sold as a slave. Zombender snorts, a tusked grin spreading across his face. Then when you become Tier 5, you'll immediately become a general. You know that, right? You're close to His Majesty, so you'll get promoted the moment you advance. While the rest of us have to reach Tier 7, which, let's be honest, is impossible for most. Sayan chuckles low, her claws flexing idly. If you do get promoted, just so you know, the 2 of us are available. Carnessa stops walking, tilts her head toward them, and the firelight catches the red in her eyes. Then she smiles, calm but with a sharpness under it. Of course I won't forget. I'd be glad to have you both in my ranks. Zombender lets out a low laugh, the sound echoing off the burned-out walls. Sayan's grin widens. Around them, the surviving monsters regroup, dragging human corpses into piles. The smell of blood is thick in the air. And at the heart of it all, Carnessa stands straight, her whip coiled loosely at her side. The 3 of them, Carnessa, Zombender, and Sayan, give the order without hesitation. Gather every gold coin, jewel, and anything of value, Zombender rumbles. Strip the town clean before we move on. The soldiers obey, instantly splitting into squads, overturning merchant stalls, prying open chests, and ripping lockboxes out of ruined homes. The clink of coins and the tearing of wood fills the square. Sayan is already counting a small pouch of gems she personally took from a noble's corpse. While the chaos unfolds, Carnessa keeps walking, eyes scanning the streets as if the gold means little to her. Her whip drags along the cobblestones, leaving a faint trail of drying blood. Carnessa steps over the collapsed body of a merchant, the man's once rich clothes now soaked in mud and blood. Her gaze isn't on the gold spilling from his pockets. It's far away, fixed on a memory. The Ash Edge clan. A clatter of metal pulls Carnessa back to the present. She turns her head slightly, watching as 2 soldiers, a horned brute and a 4-armed thin-limbed stalker, dump a chest of gold coins onto the cobblestones, letting the coins scatter so they can stuff them into sacks faster. Zombender's voice rumbles over the din. Move it. We ride before dawn. Next town won't wait for us to take our time. Sayan strolls past Carnessa, twirling one of her bone claws like a knife. What's with the long face? Didn't take you for the sentimental type. Carnessa doesn't answer right away. She glances at Sayan, her expression unreadable. Just thinking of a clan that knew how to keep their monsters alive. Sayan raises a brow, curiosity flickering in her eyes. Is that the Ashedge clan you're always talking about? Carnessa just nods once. Zombinder snorts, shaking his head as he lifts a sack of gold over one massive shoulder. I still can't believe there's a human force on this continent that doesn't torture their monster slaves. Carnessa's gaze hardens, but her tone is calm. That's why His Majesty wants to give them a chance when the time comes. When we march on their city, they'll be offered surrender. Zombinder grunts, unconvinced. And if they refuse? Her lips press into a thin line. Then they'll bleed like the rest. She exhales through her nose, turning away. Let's not talk about it. Ironvale City, deep in Ashedge territory. The streets outside are quiet, the moonlight catching on the slate rooftops, but inside a small stone pub every chair is empty, except one. Valira sits at the center table, a tall glass of deep red wine in her hand. The entire place is hers tonight. She paid the owner triple the asking price to clear the building, though the Ashedge clan already owns every brick in Ironvale. The pub owner lingers behind the counter, polishing the same glass over and over, his brow furrowed. He keeps glancing at her. His lord's daughter, the heir to the entire city, and she looks troubled. And if the heir has a problem, that means trouble for everyone under this roof. The door creaks open. Two figures step in, the faint smell of rain clinging to their cloaks. Gressrin, broad-shouldered and armored, even off-duty, and Solvin, lean and sharpied, both wearing the subtle crest of the clan on their belts. Gressrin's voice cuts through the quiet. Why is the young lady drinking here alone? Valira glances up, her expression softening just slightly. Gressrin. Solvin. Join me. They don't hesitate. Chairs scrape against the wooden floor as they sit, Gressrin on her right, Solvin across from her. Solvin studies her a moment, then asks, is this because of Sir Hadrick? Solvin's voice is measured, but there's a note of sympathy. Lady Valira, I'm sure the clan leader is hurt as you are. But in times like these, grief is a luxury for the leader of the Ashedge clan. He carries the survival of all of us on his back. I know, she says quietly, her gaze fixed on the table. Gressrin leans back in his chair, arms crossed. You shouldn't be too sad for Sir Hadrick. You know him. Dying in battle is what a warrior like him would have wanted. Valira swirls the wine in her glass, watching the deep red spin in slow circles. Her voice is softer now. If only Alex were here. He would surely think of something. Solvin leans forward, forearms resting on the table. Yeah, that guy. He shakes his head. I still can't get news about him, even after using the clan's intel network. It's like he's vanished. Gressrin shifts in his chair, his mouth twisting like he's about to say something bitter. Don't you think the Mons? Valira's eyes snap up sharp enough to cut him off. Don't you dare finish what you're about to say, Gressrin. He freezes midword, hands lifting in mock surrender. Yes, ma'am. Chapter 262-264. Yosha Kingdom. The morning light creeps through the heavy curtains, stabbing straight into Valira's skull. She groans, rolling over and dragging the blanket over her head. Her temples pound in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ugh. Feels like my head's splitting, she mutters, voice hoarse. I really shouldn't have drunk that much last night. She forces herself to sit up, her hair sticking in tangled strands against her cheek. The room sways for a moment, the faint scent of wine still clinging to her breath. A sudden knock rattles the door. Before Valira can even answer, it opens and a young maid steps inside with a hurried curtsy. Young lady, the Lord is looking for you. Valira blinks, trying to focus on the girl through the haze. Right now? Yes, my lady. He said it's urgent. Valira sighs, rubbing her eyes. All right, I'll go. Just give me a minute to make myself look like I didn't spend the night at the bottom of a wine barrel. The maid hides a small smile and bows again. Of course, my lady. She slips back out, closing the door softly behind her. Valira swings her legs over the side of the bed, stretching until her joints pop. The chill of the stone floor against her bare feet pulls her a little more into the waking world. She glances toward the mirror on the vanity. Her reflection stares back with smudged eyeliner and a faint scowl. Perfect, she mutters dryly, grabbing the water basin to splash her face before heading toward the wardrobe. Valira fastens her cloak loosely over her shoulders, not bothering to hide the faint redness in her eyes. The headache still gnaws at her, but she pushes it aside. The corridors of the manor are cool and dim, sunlight spilling in only where tall windows cut through the stone walls. Servants move briskly out of her way, bowing as she passes. She catches a few sidelong glances. Word of her late-night drinking probably spread faster than she could sober up. At the end of the hall, two guards in Ashedge armor stand before a set of carved oak doors. They nod in greeting, one pushing the door open for her. Inside, her father Velkane stands behind a broad desk strewn with maps, letters, and half-drained cups of tea. His armor is set aside on a rack in the corner, but the deep lines on his face look heavier than any metal. He doesn't look up right away. Instead, he finishes marking a route on the map with a piece of charcoal, his jaw set tight. Velkane finally stops, setting the charcoal down. When he looks at his daughter, the stern weight in his features softens. There's warmth in his eyes, warmth only she has ever been able to draw out of him. Valira is his only child. Her mother could bear no more after her, and though Velcain once longed for a son to inherit the Ashedge clan, he long ago accepted, and now takes pride, that Valira will succeed him. In truth, she's already done more for the clan than he had at her age. A faint smile tugs at his lips. When did my princess become a drunkard? Valira pouts, folding her arms. That will be my last. I feel horrible right now. Velcain steps around the desk, his boots heavy on the stone floor. Are you still mad at me? She hesitates, eyes flicking away. Silence stretches between them before she mutters, well, not anymore. Just a little bit, I guess. He exhales through his nose a short, amused breath and places a calloused hand on her shoulder. Then well, work on making that little bit disappear. Valira tilts her head, studying him. Okay, father. I know you didn't call me here just for that. Velcain nods once. That's right. You know the Yosha kingdom is the next target of the monsters, don't you? Her brow furrows. I've heard. We need to aid them, Velcain says, his voice firm. I'm sending 100,000 soldiers, with you leading them. 2 tier 6 will accompany you. Valira blinks, taken aback. Father, is that really okay? 100,000 is a lot. And those two? She hesitates, lowering her voice. They're tier 6. They'll only listen to you, not me. Velcain's expression hardens, but there's pride behind it. Don't underestimate your popularity, Valira. Your merit to this clan is greater than mine has ever been. She shifts uncomfortably. You're exaggerating. I'm not. His tone leaves no room for argument. Let them see what the next leader of the Ashedge clan is capable of. Valira straightens slightly, the weight of his words settling on her shoulders. All right, they'll prove you right. In the Yosha kingdom, the streets are chaos. Merchants abandon their stalls, families drag carts of belongings, and soldiers shout orders over the din. The air stinks of smoke and fear. In the War Council Hall, a map of the kingdom covers the table. 3/4 of it is shaded in black ink, the territory already taken by the monsters. The red lines marking the front keep shrinking every day. A grizzled Yoshan general slams his fist against the table. They've already crossed the Soren Plains. At this pace, the capital will be surrounded in less than a week. Another officer, his armor dented and dusty from the front lines, shakes his head. We only managed to slow them down because reinforcements started arriving. Without them, the kingdom would have fallen days ago. An older noble leans forward, his voice trembling. And you're certain more help is coming? We cannot hold without it. A scout steps in, saluting. Messengers report the Ashedge clan has dispatched 100,000 soldiers led by Lord Velcain's daughter. 2 tier 6 generals accompany her. The room stirs with murmurs. Valira Ashedge? The grizzled general asks, narrowing his eyes. I've heard of her. A general frowns. She's good, but can she command forces of that size? Especially with tier 6 under her? The noble waves a hand impatiently. Good or not, we need every sword we can get. Pray she gets here before the monsters push through the next line. The murmurs fade when the king, who has been silent until now, finally speaks. His voice is calm but heavy. Tell me, is the Ashedge clan the only one from the top 10 forces under the Empire that has sent reinforcements? The room goes quiet. No one dares answer until the tier 6 marshal steps forward, his expression grim. Yes, your majesty. The 2 kingdom hasn't sent a single soldier. Even the Empire itself remains silent. The king exhales slowly, his shoulders sinking. Even in a time like this, they still think only of preserving their own strength. The marshal's lips curl in bitterness. A general clenches his fists. So they're using us as a wall, a disposable shield. The king closes his eyes for a brief moment, then straightens in his seat. Then we'll be a wall they can't break. If the others wish to move only when it benefits them, let them. The Yosha kingdom will stand with those who choose to fight now. The marshal bows his head. Yes, your majesty. The city of Dexa burns. Smoke coils into the sky, blotting out the sun. The screams of civilians mix with the clash of steel and the roar of collapsing walls. Water crashes through the streets in rushing torrents. Skills from the Watervale clan, their soldiers using wave after wave to shield the fleeing people. Keep moving. Don't stop for anything. A Watervale captain shouts, his voice hoarse. He swings his trident, releasing a burst of pressurized water that smashes a hulking monster into a wall. The creature crumples, but more pour through the shattered gates. The city is lost. Everyone knows it. Now the only goal is escape. A noblewoman in a torn gown stumbles toward the evacuation line, clutching a crying child. A Watervale soldier catches her before she falls, pulling both toward the waiting carts. Go. The last convoy leaves in 3 minutes. Across the square, the true predators arrive. Carnessa stands at the forefront. Tall-horned and wrapped in blackened armor that gleams red in the firelight. Her oni eyes burn as she surveys the retreating humans. The street runs slick with water and blood. Enough, she says coldly. Stop chasing them. The monsters behind her halt mid-charge. From the rooftop above, Nasara said, "You're letting them go?" Carnessa doesn't look at her. They've already broken. Chasing them now is a waste of strength. Vertha lands beside Carnessa, her scaled arms crossed over his chest. "I thought you enjoyed the hunt." From the shadows of a collapsed archway, Soren steps forward, brushing dust from her dark cloak. Her eyes like shards of obsidian narrow on the fleeing humans. They're scattering in all directions. Let them. Fear spreads faster when they think they've escaped. Thurn chuckles low in his throat, leaning on his spear. And when that fear reaches the next city, it'll already be half-beaten before we even get there. Nasara's lips curve into a faint smile as she strolls closer, her steps unhurried despite the chaos around them. "Don't be too harsh on our little sister here," she says, tilting her head toward Carnessa. "I still remember when His Majesty first introduced you. You could barely meet anyone's eyes. So timid and quiet." Her gaze flicks briefly to the burning skyline before she adds, "But now? Sir Mazel has clearly worked wonders." Carnessa's face twitches. "All right, don't make me remember those hellish trainings." Soren turns her head toward them. "Okay, enough standing around. Let's clean this place out." If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions. Just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.